Hey everyone, I'm Michael, and this is another episode in my series, A Plant a Week. In this series, I talk about various houseplants. I highlight one for the whole video, talking about how to properly care for it, how to water it, how to propagate it, everything that you need to know to keep your plant healthy and happy. A few years ago, my sister Victoria worked at Lowe's. Her Lowe's had the typical plant selection, nothing crazy, nothing too rare, but one day she said they had these black ZZ plants in and wondered if I wanted one. Yeah. Me and every other plant parent east of Toronto. They couldn't keep them on the shelves. They'd have shipments come in and people would snatch them up the moments they were opened. We've got 3 or 4 ZZ Ravens in the house now. This one in particular is mine. It's been a constant grower since I got it, and even though it's one of those plants you always kind of forget about, it's by far one of the easiest plants to keep alive in my collection. ZZ stands for Zamioculcas zamifolia. It's also known as the Zanzibar plant. Everybody just calls it ZZ, so we're just gonna call it the ZZ plant. The raven in its name comes from the fact that it is black. If you've ever needed a plant to match your gothic demeanor, this is the one for you. I've never seen a blacker plant, and it's so easy to care for that you could get it without having any prior knowledge to plant care. The raven is a cultivar of the original ZZ, which means it's been specifically bred and created to have this black look. ZZs are one of the best plants for low light areas. They can even survive in a room without a window for an extended period of time. They do better in brighter indirect light areas, but that still doesn't mean that it won't grow in a darker corner. I do try to give my lower light plants like ZZs and Sansevierias and Pothos better light than is really necessary because I find that they reward that lighting with ample growth. As you can see, this raven is no exception to that. These plants are very succulent. The leaves are thick and waxy, giving it the ability to hold onto the water that it receives. They also have these large tubers, you can see some of them here poking out above the soil, and these tubers also store a lot of water. That being said, watering this plant really depends on the amount of light that you give it. It is prone to root rot if it gets too much water, and can definitely stand being underwatered. Where I have mine, it's kind of like away from a south-facing window. I water mine about every 2 weeks, and that's just because it's very dry up here in this apartment. But normally you could get away with watering it maybe like once a month or even every like 5 weeks or something like that. It will tell you when it's thirsty though, when the leaves start to look thin and a little bit puckered, which is nice. Because it doesn't like to sit well in wet soil, it's best to pot this in a very coarse medium. You could use cactus and succulent soil or a potting mix that is full of rocks and sand and perlite. I've actually never repotted this. I'm going to have to repot it this spring because it's starting to grow out of the bottom. But I've had it in this soil for about like 3 years, I think. And it's a pretty coarse soil mixture. The easiest way to propagate ZZ is through division, by digging the plant up and separating its pups from the mother plant. However, you can also propagate this plant through leaf cuttings, cutting along the stem, taking a portion of leaves and placing that in water until roots begin to form. I have tried propagating ZZ once this way and it rotted the whole plant. So if you're gonna propagate it, I would advise just digging it up and separating it once it grows some new babies. As far as pests, I've never had any problems with any pests on my ZZs. In fact, they're known to be hardy when it comes to plant pests. So it might be a good option for those of you who are tired of dealing with spider mites and fungus gnats and mealybugs and everything else. If they do attract pests and you notice that there are some on your plant, it's simple enough to treat them with neem oil or some other type of insecticide. Keep in mind that this plant is toxic to both humans and animals. It's not just its gothic personality that you have to watch out for, so make sure it's away from curious pets and kids. It might look like black licorice, but it doesn't taste like black licorice. At least I think. I've never actually tried, because it's toxic. Definitely pick one of these up if you come across them. While they're not as rare now as they were a few years ago, they're still really in high demand, and for good reason. It's actually really fast growing and one of the easiest plants that you can have. They can become quite large too, and who doesn't want a moody gothic black plant just sitting in the corner? Just make sure to tell it to turn down the My Chemical Romance after midnight. People are trying to sleep over here. Thanks again for watching. Remember to like and subscribe for similar content. On Mondays, I post videos about houseplants, and on Fridays, I also post videos about houseplants, and reading, writing, photography, art, and any other generic interests of mine. As always, you can find my social media links in the description below. Also, you can find links to H&H Games, the board game company I've helped create, and our debut board game, Season of Heroes. You can also find the Amazon links to my fantasy series, A Chronicle of Crowns. Thanks for watching, bye!